She's going to go turn them on, so just waiting on. All right, cool. We're at 7 o'clock. We'll get the meeting called to order. First order of business is always to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We will now do a quick roll call before we get into our agenda items. So real quickly, District 1, Jason Wienerman.
District 1.
All right, thank you, Jason. District 2, David Bentrud. It's here, perfect. All right. I am Jason Crone, representing District 3. District 4, Sean Blackburn.
Right here.
All right, thanks, Sean. District 5, Mike Prell.
Here.
All right. At large, Rich Belankish.
Right here.
All right. At large, Tara Ossendorf.
Present.
All right, very good. And we have our commission member, Joe Persky, here as well tonight. So Joe will listen to the conversation and then bring some of this feedback back to the commissioners when they have their meeting later this month. So with that, before we get to the first agenda item, I know we have to select some roles. It's something that rotates every year. So this being our first meeting in 2023, our responsibility is to elect roles. So chairperson, I am the past chairperson from 2022. We need to elect a chairperson for this year, a vice chairperson, and then a secretary. So that usually goes through a nomination process, and then we'll just quickly vote on those. In addition to that, we will have a Board of Adjustment representative. So the Planning Commission always has one representative that sits on the Board of Adjustment. It typically rotates by district, so that should be, if you're willing, Mike this year, but we'll get to that and vote on it. Then we also have an opening on the Planning Committee and Park Commission, so we'll vote, need nominations and votes on those as well. So I guess to get started, we can do this in any order, but maybe we'll just start with chairperson. So that is this role, just to kind of lead the meeting.
Mr. Chair, would you be willing and interested to serve again?
Boy, I guess I would for one more year, and then
Oh, you'd be allowed.
if I'm allowed, and I will be happy to hand it on to the next person. But yeah, I will for another year.
So therefore, I nominate Member Crone to be chair for a second term.
I'll second it.
All right, so quick roll call on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I was going to say aye, but I didn't. All right, then the next thing would be a vice chair in the event that I'm unable to be at a meeting. Someone else to sit in. So, Sean, I think you were last year. Or would you be willing again this year?
I would be fine with that.
All right, then I will nominate Sean to be the vice chair.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jason. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you for not saying nay, Sean. All right, and then that takes us to the secretary. And I'm not even sure who is secretary.
I think isn't it Mr. Blankish?
No,
It was Ken. Okay, so we need a brand. Well, I'd make a nomination for Jason Wienerman if you'd be so willing.
Got him. Okay.
Since you thought it was you anyway.
It's fine.
So we just need a second then.
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you, Sean. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. Thank you, Jason, for that. So Board of Adjustment, Mike, that would be you. Are you willing to do that? Okay. So then if anyone wants to make an official nomination, I don't have to hog the mic.
So moved.
Thank you, Jason.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thank you, Mike. Plating Committee.
Mr. Chair, just a question. Should we slow down a little bit?
Am I going fast? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just noticed that. I was like, so, okay, we're good. We'll slow down so you
Good.
get it.
A Board of Adjustments. Oh, I'm sorry. Board of Adjustment is Mike Prell. Can you tell him double booked right now? I was trying to. get it rolling. Okay, and just let me know if we continue to go too fast. It's my fault.
Mr. Chair, as long as you're all speaking into the mic, this is recorded and then we can hear. If you don't speak into the mic, then it's difficult.
Very good. Keep us in line, Angie. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the plating committee, and I believe that was Jeff in the past. And so I don't know a lot about the plating commission or plating committee and how much time is involved with that, but I do believe they meet at least monthly. Angie, do you have any insight into that
Mr. Chair,
responsibility?
last year I think the planning committee met 2 times at the most,
Oh, all year?
maybe 3.
Okay.
It's only when you have a major plat. And
Okay.
so I'm thinking, I think you had one on Rice Lake and then you had the one that's coming back near Big
Yeah.
Fish. Those
Yeah.
are the only 2. So it's 3, maybe 4 would be a lot times per
Okay.
year. We do meet during the day, 8:30, I believe. I don't have the dates in front of me, but yes, and we can certainly accommodate other schedules if we needed to, but it is a daytime meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd be interested in that if it's open. I
Hey.
don't want to step on anybody's toes.
It's completely open, and that would be great, Dave. Is anyone else interested in doing plating? Dave, I'm going to nominate you for the plating committee. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Dave. That's a good one. And then we also have the Park Commission. And Angie, how many times did the Park Commission meet? Maybe last year? Or Rich, are you still?
Yeah, we meet every month.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I would like to throw my hat in the ring again.
Okay. You know what?
We have some big projects.
So
that are
moved.
Good.
gonna
Yeah.
come and do this.
I've heard of a couple of them, so it'd be good to have a little of that experience. So Jason moved. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thank you, Rich. All right. That order of business is done. We can move on to the first agenda item.
Did we skip over number 2?
Yeah, we need to get sworn in.
Oh,
Oh.
thank you. I missed the swearing in. Do we have that part up there? Because I don't have that memorized.
Mr. Chair, Deb, they were asking about the oath.
The oath of office will be sent out to you for your signature. And so it'll be sent out through Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Sign. So watch for it in the next couple of weeks. And then you just need to return it and send it back to us. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Okay, so we can move on to agenda item number 1, pending anything else. And that's to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Brockway Township for a major shoreland alteration according to sections 10.1.7C and 10.2.14I of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request includes a topographic alteration and construction of a retaining wall in a mapped floodway area. The property under consideration is part of Government Lot 1, Section 20 of Brockway Township. Proposed project area is at the end of Walleye Road, known as Smarts Ferry Road. So real quickly, if we can do a roll call of members that were able to visit the site, and we'll just start with you, Jason.
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
I also was. Dave?
Yes.
Tara?
No.
Okay, and Rich?
Yes.
All right, very good. And with that, we can move to the staff report.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. As noted, this is a request for a retaining wall topographic alteration and patio area in the shore impact zone and floodway of the Mississippi River. The topography in the project area is relatively flat above a moderate slope at the riverbank. The soils there are loamy sand soils that are not highly erodible. Mapped floodway exists in much of the property and the entire project area, and that is the reason why this is before you. It's an ordinance requirement for a conditional use permit for alterations in mapped floodway. The vegetation on the site, much of the vegetation is unmowed and lines much of the river frontage. There's no septic system on this property. The zoning district here is adjacent to R1 on both sides. I did complete 2 site visits out here, one in 2021, one in 2022, with the township in preparation for this project. The project entails a retaining wall at 39 feet in length, between 1 and 3 feet high. It's proposed adjacent to the paved area for the boat launch that exists there already. The wall has been engineered and engineering documentation is attached in the application. The engineering was a requirement for a no-rise certification. That's being in floodway, the project had to ensure that it didn't increase the flood stage at all in this reach of the river. Topographic alteration, approximately 10 cubic yards for retaining wall construction in the patio area. The patio area is proposed at 12 feet by 12 feet, and that's proposed on the south side of the access area to accommodate some picnic tables. Sediment and erosion control, they will be required to follow all of our standard conditions for sediment and erosion control, and they can add additional, they noted, they could add additional wood sediment logs or silt socks in addition to the minimum conditions if requested or required. The proposed contractor is Rocks to Roses Landscaping. They are a licensed drilling contractor with the county. And one thing that did come up that I asked the township about in terms of was property lines and where the edge of the property was, and they are aware where that is, and they state that all of the work will be conducted within their property. So we have one listed recommended condition if approved, and that is that the vegetation buffer that exists between the proposed patio and the river shall remain undisturbed and not mowed. And this does tie back into an ordinance requirement that we have to maintain vegetation, unmowed vegetation between impervious area and the water. The application was extended an additional 60 days administratively, so they are at the maximum. The deadline is March 23rd on that. So I did receive some correspondence from the neighbors, but I believe they are here tonight for some testimony. And that is all I have.
All right, very good. Is the applicant here? All right. When you get, and you can sit down too if you'd prefer.
This is fine.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just state your name
Yeah,
and address.
I'm George Fiedler. I'm one of the 3 supervisors from Brockway Township. The address at Brockway Township is 43710 85th Avenue, North Rice, Minnesota. And so this really ensued about 2 years ago. We had a public hearing for residents in Brockway Township to see how often they use the boat landing, what they'd like to see at the boat landing to entice people, to make it a more pleasant experience. So we took their input, and one of them was a patio area so we could put a picnic table down so people could sit down and enjoy the river. It's very peaceful there if you've ever been down there, not right now, but in the summertime. And we also want to put, this is not part of our proposal, we want to put a garbage container out there because there's a lot of trash is thrown around along that area there. And so basically we want to make it more pleasant. It's been a 2-year adventure for us to try to get this going, and we appreciate your consideration for it. And I'll answer any questions if anybody has anything.
All right, very good. I was going to ask the question is just what the purpose was. I saw it as a patio. I appreciate the backstory on the public feedback. So
Yeah.
that answered the question I was going to have.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions for the applicant?
Question for the applicant, and then a second one for Nick. So there's going to be a patio, potentially a picnic table out there. What's the rule? What's the rule on fire rings, fire installations in that area? Will that be monitored by neighbors or anything in case it becomes a recreational fire site?
We don't have any plans for a fire ring. It's just a picnic table on a patio area.
And then a question for Nick. It says on the photos, the soils have been disturbed. Has this site been reshaped, do we know, any time in the past? Historically, is this what it looked like originally? Do we know that?
Mr. Chair, Member Wienerman, yeah, I mean, over the years, I'm sure it's been regraded. You know, I don't know, I don't have any specific dates of when or whatever, but when you compare it to, well, I do know that on the adjacent property there has been alteration. I mean, we did have a CUP on the neighboring property last year, the year before, and obviously with the access there, that whole area was regraded at some point. But it is fairly stable and everything as it is currently.
All right, thank you.
The other thing I would like to mention, that parking lot is not, all of it is not owned by us. It's owned by the neighbor to the north. And that property was sold to a new individual. I don't recall his name. Maybe he's here tonight. I don't know. But in the old property owner, there was a 99-year lease for us to use that parking area. We reaffirmed that 99-year lease with the new property owner, and we have documentation which will be recorded with the county. So we'll be able to use that parking lot.
Very good. Last question I have, and it's more for you, Nick, because I struggled to find it. I know in the conditions it talks about the undisturbed area between the patio and the shoreline. This is a technicality, trust me, I'm not too stressed, but is that defined somewhere? Because I could not find the dimensions based on a plan in our packet. So is that specified somewhere?
The distance between the patio and the river?
Yeah, just because it says the area, and I don't know if it needs to be, does the contractor, does everyone understand what that distance is?
Yeah, that's not defined, and obviously that will change based on the river level as that moves up and down, so that is a variable that will change. But, you know, wherever that patio is constructed, there is a flat spot that is roughly outlined here. It's just between that and the river would need to be, you know.
That's a good point.
Meet the condition.
The river level does fluctuate, so I guess it's a moving target anyway. All right, I'm good on that. Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
Chair, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
Was this retaining wall, is that preempted by an erosion concern or some other thing happening out there, or is this just specifically for public improvements?
It's twofold. One of them is public improvement to make it look better. And the secondary thing, it'll give a little bit more space from the ramp on the side when people are walking down there. Because, you know, now it's kind of sloped and it'll be more at a 90 degree to the wall. So it gives a little bit more space. Angie, can you put up that aerial part that shows that little triangle part? There's an aerial view that shows to the north. There's a small triangle part that's to the north of the wall we're putting in. We don't own that either. Craig Sexton owns that little triangle part there, and he owns the lot to the south of the boat landing. So we don't have any intention to mow that triangle area. That's his area. He doesn't want it mowed. We have offered to purchase that. The township has offered to purchase that from Mr. Sexton. He's not interested in selling it right now, but if he ever is, we would probably purchase that also.
Very good. Anything else, Tara or anybody? Any other questions? Joe, you have one? Go ahead.
George, you know, this is a tremendous asset, you know, for the township and for the county. And so we very much would like to see, you know, the improvement you're looking at. You know, folks have been crossing that spot of the river since folks have been along that river. So, yeah, it's a good spot. Lights not on. All right, I had 3 questions. You took care of 2 of them. First of all, I was very concerned about the parking and about the property line. I'm glad that's been resolved. I'm curious about the Sexton's properties too, because that it would be a nice addition, and maybe we can down the road negotiate something. I did not see where the patio was going on the diagram there. Is it on there? Where are you talking about?
Okay, it would be, if you look to the south of the boat ramp, Angie, you right in there, yeah. Not that close to the river. It's up a little bit more.
So, okay. Anyway, I hadn't seen it on the diagram. I was just curious where it was going to go, and by all means, picnic table would be good. A trash receptacle would be good as well. In some of the parks in Sartell, we have issues about making sure they're emptied, though. So
Well, we're aware of that, so, I mean, we're gonna put it in the springtime, and we're gonna monitor it and see what happens. If we put in a big one, we know we're gonna have, it's gonna be filled on a regular basis with stuff we don't want in there, but we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, and I don't know if the DNR or the county could help out either, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do the best we can with that, so, all right.
Thank you.
Nice project.
Thank you.
Good. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll open up move the public hearing. So if there's anyone here from the
Why don't
public,
If you want to sit here, in case they've got questions, then you don't have to come back up.
yeah, if those are here from the public, you can come on up front and then just state your name and address for the record and just try to keep it to, a couple minutes if you can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Craig Sexton, and I do own the property that is wanting to put a wall on. Like, it's right in the middle of my lot. Like, that seems strange that the township or the county can legally, don't know the legalities of it, can put a wall in the middle of my property without even consulting or asking a question of me. Just put it out there. And that particular, where that wall's going, I'm only 55 years old, and that little bump's been there ever since I've been a kid. There's never been an issue with it. And I'm not sure what the purpose of a wall really would be there, because, as they stated, they're not going to be cut. Going to the wall, from the landing to the wall, is my property, so that's just going to encourage more people to go into my land. Putting a patio down below floodplains, I guess I don't know how the township can get by with that, and people like me cannot get by with it, because I have property that's higher than that, and I asked the question and it was shut down. And it just seems strange that all this can come up, and because I'm not a township, that can be done, and I can't do it as a personal owner. It's frustrating. And you think the township, would at least came up and asked the question of the property owner before they said, I'm going to put a wall right in the middle of your land. And the stuff they talk about, the debris that needs to be moved out, was because of when they redid the landing, they just threw all their scrap gravel on the north and on the south side, and it's still sitting there. That's not from me. And the tree branches that's on the land are tree branches. Like, that's just natural cause. The river flows in, and the garbage in those pictures, that's garbage because of the landing. The township has never taken care of that landing. And now, I don't know, all of a sudden, they want to put in this patio, invite more people down to the landing, which is going to only put people on my land, to the north and to the south. Because they don't restrict anything from going down there.
So, quick question for you is that how wide is that easement that the township owns? Is it just the landing, or how far does it go on each side?
30 feet.
Does anyone have that information?
Technically, is my mic on? Technically, it's 33 feet.
33 feet? Okay.
We can have a right-of-way of 33 feet.
Okay. And this patio falls outside of that right-of-way currently?
Right.
Okay.
That's on our property. Can I answer some questions Mr. Sexton brought up?
Yeah, yep, you can.
Okay. So, for Mr. Sexton, for you to say you didn't know about this is not correct. I spoke to you on the phone about this. I asked you, I said we were putting a retaining wall in there, and I even asked if we could purchase your land, and I asked you if we could go on your land while we were building the wall that would make it easier, and you said no, and I said, that's fine, we won't touch your property. So for you to come here and say that you don't know about it, it's not true.
Okay, when I say, no, you can't touch my property, and then I look and there's a wall going right through the middle of it, that seems to be strange to me.
It's not through your property. It's township property. We're not going on your property.
Okay, where the wall is?
Yes.
Yours, okay, then the lot lines have changed since I've got my plat. Because from what I understood, I owned from the north curb and it went to the south, that 33 feet. It didn't go to the north. Now, unless something's changed again, which it seems to be a floating change out there on that property, which has been frustrating for all the years I've owned it. Now I'm being told I don't own it. So, and we just sat through this thing, a year ago when we tried to put a restaurant out there, and the lot lines were drawn, and it was from the north curb south was the 33 feet, and I owned everything from the curb to what there's currently a wall in there now, which was my old property line. That's what I understood. So
The land was surveyed about 3 years ago, and I put steel stakes, metal posts in on the corners of the property. So if you go down there today, well, they'll be sticking up. The snow is deep, but there's a steel post near the edge of the river where it was surveyed. We can pull the survey out again and look at it, but that's where the lines are.
no, that's not how it was drawn out to me in the plots I've seen.
Yeah.
And even if it is not my property, which is going to be news to me, I still would not encourage more people to go down to that landing, because they use it as a garbage dump right now. But people go there and literally defecate. It's on videotape of what people do down there. It is a party place. And I do not want to encourage more people going down there. Because if you put a patio right there, they step off that patio, they're on my south property. You can't tell me they're not going to do that.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Any other points that you have? All right. Thank you very much. Yep. Go ahead and come up if you have
Mr. Chair?
testimony. Go ahead, Joe.
Angie, do we have the latest survey data on that property? Is this all we have that we're looking at?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, I was going to pull up the old Smarts Ferry Landing document. That's from, I think, the 1900s. I do not have a copy of the Brockway Township's most recent survey, but obviously we can get that. I don't know if I can get it tonight, because that would mean that the surveyor would have had to report it to the county. But just to be clear, the Planning Commission and the board is not being asked, nor can you permit something on someone else's property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And, Mr. Chair, Mr. Fiedler, do you have any documentation with you on that?
I apologize. I do not have it with me. I didn't expect this issue would come up.
Go ahead. If you can state your name and address.
My name is Steve Allen, 41024 57th Street North. So we are the property that is north of the boat landing. Now, Walleye Road, when you come in between all these private properties, Walleye Road is a township road. My wife and I had tried to see if we could get the road vacated to make it a private road, not to get rid of the landing, because the boat landing's there and it serves its purposes for people that live on the river. But since we've been down there, and I'm going to show you some pictures as to what happens, it's my understanding that the township has a 66-foot easement, so 33 feet either way from the center of the road. Mr. Sexton owns the property, but there's an easement. I've never heard something so strange as we're going to put a patio within a right-of-way. Are we going to start building patios and ditches that are right-of-way from a road? The township doesn't own it. Mr. Sexton does. It's a right-of-way. That's number one. Number two, and I've brought this up to Brockway Township numerous times. I was on meetings with George Fiedler as well, with the Parks Planning Commission in Stearns County, because I don't know if everybody's aware of the fact. I mean, I'm glad to hear that 90% of you went down and did a site visit, because what I'm going to show you, it'll all come clear as to why this doesn't make sense. But Stearns County and Brockway Township have a wonderful jewel, who Mr. Persky was fighting tooth and nail to try and get land purchased north of the Mississippi River Park. It's a third of a mile up the road. Currently has over 20 parking spots in it, has picnic tables, has garbage cans, has over 625 feet of river frontage. I personally, when I wanted to get the road vacated, went out, got petitions from people, asked the general public as to, would you be in favor of closing the boat land or vacating the road, keeping the landing, or would you not? I mean, we have a park right up the road. The overwhelming response that I got from people was, well, we prefer using the Smarts Ferry landing because there's a little bit of sandy beach there. So assume, Jason, you want to go out and fish for the afternoon. You're there by yourself. There's 5 to 6 parking spots down at Smarts Ferry Landing, by the way, maximum. You're going to pull your boat in, drop it in. You're going to pull it up on some sand, and you're going to quick run and park your car. Okay? The reason why people don't want to utilize the wonderful jewel that Stearns County has, which is also within Brockway Township, is because there's a rocky shoreline. 625 plus feet of rocky shoreline. Now, it seems to me, if we're going to spend taxpayer dollars, and I know this isn't your issue, but it seems to me that the most common sense thing is, why don't they put a dock system down at Stearns County? As a matter of fact, the parks funds that are going to be used for this, why not allocate them down to a park, not a landing or a road, where people go and they picnic and then they could launch their boat and tie it up. The elderly people that I talk to, they have troubles getting into their boat even when it's pulled up on the shoreline. So if there's a dock system put down at Stearns County, my God, we could even have it ADA compliant. There's a ramp. With the amount of money that's going to get wasted on this project, to me, I look at it and it's like, it's ridiculous. Now, if I can have a minute, I am going to show you, because I've spoke with Mr. Fiedler for 2 years since we've owned it about the garbage problem. I keep hearing, yep, we're going to get garbage service down there. I don't know why we can't get garbage service, but if we can, even if you take what was up there, the 4 pictures that they have of the proposed project. Okay, so picture number 2, maybe it's the next one, right there. So that picture, look down on the bottom of that picture and just a little bit about to the center, a little to the left, you see that orange thing? That's an orange pop can. Now let's flip to picture number 4. I'm glad that, for their pictures, oh my gosh, we've got a boat tarp oil stained parked down there. So what I do and my wife do when we go down to our property, which is the adjacent one, we spend our time picking stuff up. So I'm just going to hand out some pictures that we have the dates. So there was a 1-week period between what we clean up. And Jason, you had a wonderful comment about fire ring. Okay, Jason, fires are going on down there all the time, burning the cans, burning the plastic containers for their drinks. So I'll show you these. And then I think Mr. Sexton made the comment about defecation. Well, there's a picture in here. Yeah, people actually, human defecate in my property as well as other things. So I'll just hand these out and you can look at them real quick.
Yeah. Yep, cool. Thank you.
Does it work?
But to me, all I see is if we put a picnic table down there, and then don't mow the grass between the patio, it's just going to be, let's throw more garbage there. And then as far as doing a retaining wall, I don't know why it doesn't just stay the natural landscape it is. I have a wall that follows our property line. I'm sure you saw it, the granite boulders. So now we're going to make a little V. We're going to have 2 walls. I can tell you what human nature is. People are going to back up, or when they're pulling their boat out and they got beer cans and stuff, they don't want to drive down the road with beer cans. I can tell you where they're going to show up. Right over the township's wall in unmowed grass that I get to pick the garbage up. Quite frankly, I've spent over $500,000 on my property so far. Haven't even built my house yet. Not interested in being the public's waste dump. But, you can just see what happens down there. It's only going to get worse. So a park is meant for parks and picnics and picnic tables, which is 1/3 of a mile up the road. I don't think we're being unreasonable to ask the public. And if we're looking at the public good, the best thing is let's put resources into the public park, not the landing. It's a park.
Oh, thank you very much. Do you want to respond to any of those?
Yes, I would. So a lot of what Steve is saying is speculation, just like it was when there was going to be a restaurant put down there. Everybody said there'd be squilling tires and drugs and booze and everything else. So I believe it's speculation. There's more than 5 or 6 parking spots in that parking lot. There's at least 15 because we have a 99-year lease with the neighbor to the north.
Yeah, we've been there, so we can all make a judgment call. Yeah. Yep.
So, and if we want to get into technicalities about right-of-way, the Illins Rock Wall is in our right-of-way, which is 33 feet off of the parking lot. Now, we told them, you can leave your wall there, we're okay with it, because there's not traffic that's driving on that road fast. It would be a liability if there was. They can't drive fast because it's a parking lot. But so, if we're talking about technicalities here, we have some people that are in our right-of-way. So, and putting a picnic table in an area like this is not going to draw thousands and thousands of people, in my opinion. Whoever uses that boat landing may want to sit down and relax for a while. I agree with Steve. There is a problem with trash down there. There always has been. That's why we want to put a garbage container down there, and we want to call the sheriff up to patrol it more. But I don't think the answer is, oh my God, the sky is falling. Well, then let's just close the whole thing off and not use it at all. Now, when we had our public hearing, the predominant number of people that came wanted to keep that road open, wanted to use that river landing on a continual basis. And we took their feedback. And that's why we're acting on it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, that picture right there, if you look to the south.
Mr. Chair, Craig, if you'd like to speak, we do need to come to the microphone or we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yep, just
Yep,
do
yep.
that up here, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it just has to be in the public record, so.
All right, to the south there, you see that big pile of rock? That's what the township does. They put that landing in when the drawdown was there, and where's the rock? Sitting right there as garbage, as the rest of the place is used. Now, I also have to say that I don't know why all of a sudden the township has an interest in this piece of property where for the last 15 years they've totally ignored it. You know, now they want to all of a sudden build something to bring people down. And if you look at some of the pictures that were put up here, the fire ring has nothing to do with it. They go steal wood. When I own the land, they stole my wood. They bring it down to the beach, and they have parties, and they sit there and they start fires right on the beach. Now, what's going to stop that? Nothing. Especially if you don't mow it and you don't keep it up. Matter of fact, the reason I stopped mowing it is when I mowed it, people thought it was a park. And then they brought down tents. They brought down, you know, their dogs. That's another thing we didn't even talk about. This is used as a dog park.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Could I respond to one thing Mr. Sexton said?
Yes.
So the debris that you see that was left there, that's part of this project, is to clean those piles of debris up, level it out, make it look decent. And the reason why we're interested in this area now and we're not leaving it go like it did before is because we have residents that are interested in going down there just like they did before. We're not putting anything in there to attract more people necessarily. It might, but that's the purpose of it, is for people to enjoy it. Are you going to have some people that do nasty things? Of course you are. Nothing's perfect.
Oh, all right, very good. Yep.
That last picture that you had up, could you please pull that one back up where it says no parking?
Yep, Steve, just address yourself
Yeah,
again, please.
Yeah,
for the
you
record.
can, yeah, and we just kind of got to stay somewhat orderly because all this goes into the public record. So you can come up as well, but if you just want to speak, if you want to make a line here so we kind of know where we're going.
All right, so Steve Allen, 41024 57th. So if you see that X on the new asphalt, that X is where Brockway Township was supposed to put their sign, and my wall is on my property. I did address this with George, and I said the sign needs to get moved. I was told, no, we're not going to move it. So, but the sign is on my property, not on where the easement is. So I do want to reflect that in the record as well, because there's been issues where it's like a sign garden down there now. There's signs everywhere. It's just confusing to people.
Thank you.
Could I please comment to that? George Fiedler from Brockway. That sign is in our right-of-way.
Yep.
And I explained that to Steve when he called me about it. It's in the right-of-way, which we're entitled to put signs in the right-of-way.
Yeah. Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, Mike Nolting, 17517 Marina Court. Actually, if you go back to the plat, my wife and I own the property just north of Elands. And I have one serious question that goes back decades, back even when it was Gilligan. The maintenance of that landing. I have never in my life, going back to the early 90s, seen anybody from Brockway or even the neighbors that, yes, and I was at the hearing when George had this roughly a year and a half ago with regards to vacating the road, where a lot of the neighbors came down and said, we like this because we like to put our boat in. I've never once seen any of the neighbors even come down there to clean up the mess, a Thursday, Friday, a Saturday, or a Sunday morning. Now, if I can get a commitment from George and everybody in the Brockway Township here tonight that says they will be there every morning cleaning up this damn mess, then I could say I'm okay with it. But I can guarantee you this. They've already said they're not going to mow it. They already said, well, we're not going to have fires. Well, we've seen examples of fires. This place has been a mess from day one, and nobody has taken responsibility for making it an inviting place. It has been a damn, sorry about that. It's been a sore. It really has been. And this idea that we're going to bring in more people, we're going to put in a patio, we're not going to mow the lawn, so the grass is going to be this damn tall. Sorry again. Doesn't make any sense to what I look at as a park. If I go to a park, I want to be able to walk up to something and not be full of wood ticks. I want to be able to let my dog run around as long as I clean up for my dog. There's dogs down there, they're defecating everywhere. Who ends up cleaning that stuff up? Myself, Craig, and Steve. This is not going to make anything better that I can see. Thank you.
Thank you.
So may I address some of those comments?
Yep.
So our intent is we won't be down there every day. That's unreasonable. We'll be down there on a weekly basis to clean up trash, et cetera. That's our intention. As far as mowing, we would prefer to mow, but the county has told us natural vegetation is better. So maybe the county can comment on that. I'd be happy to mow down there. Well, that was my original intention.
Okay, thank you. I don't even know if we need to comment. I mean, it's one of those standing practices in floodplains is that mowing is generally not preferred. But if you guys want to, Nick, if you want to provide additional comment.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, maintaining vegetation, especially when you're mowing grass, the root structure is very poor. It can lead to sediment washing off the bank and the slope, especially in flooding situations, which this is subject to, and that leads to sediment in the water, which brings nutrients like phosphorus into the river, which is what we're trying to avoid.
All right, thank you. All right, is anyone else here from the public on this one? For additional public comment? Otherwise, motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
I move we close the public hearing.
All right, do I have a second?
Nick, you said there was written comment. Is there anything in the written comment that's additional to here?
Mr. Chair, Member Wiederman, there was no written comment submitted for it. It was just neighbors that have spoken here at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Then I'll second the motion.
Hang on, real quickly, seems like we have a question. Go ahead.
Because I did meet Steve Allen. I did meet with Nick the other day, and I'm just wondering, did the DNR ever respond or give any public or any comment?
We have not received any comment from the DNR.
Because I posed the question, you know, it is in a sensitive area, and we own the land to the north. I can't do anything to my private riverbank, so I've got a 45-degree slope ramp going down to my dock. And I said, well, what if the DNR doesn't comment? Because I call, they don't get back to me. I'm like, so what happens? Well, they were supposed to comment before. So if you haven't gotten it, because what I was told is The DNR has to oversee it. I would need the Army Corps of Engineers if I want to do anything. So it just seems like we're trying to move forward with stuff without proper.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I comment on that?
Yep.
So about a year and a half ago, I did call the DNR. They didn't come out, but I explained to the, and I don't remember what her name was, but we had a discussion on the phone. I explained that we wanted to put a small retaining wall. I described it to her, and her comments were, that would look pretty good there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We had a motion by Mike and a second by Sean to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, public hearing closed. All right, so further discussion for the Planning Commission. Couple questions I have, Angie. First of all, you mentioned obviously we can't vote on anything that is not in the applicant's property. So how does this go as it relates to an easement for a right-of-way? Because that's a little different than owning property.
Well, Mr. Chair, it's evident to me that there's some property line disputes going on, which we're not going to resolve tonight. None of us are surveyors or attorneys, so I think there needs to be some conversation between the township and the neighbors. Maybe it needs to get resurveyed and someone goes out and flags it or paints it, and we obviously wouldn't want to see any work being done before that happens, because then it gets to be complicated after that.
Without a doubt, and it's really hard to vote on anything when there's some things like this that are largely at play. The floodplain question, that's one thing that was brought up, that I also, the entire area is a floodplain. Everything that's ever been done down there, from what I can see, has been in that floodplain. So that's a tricky one too. However, I just know that kind of goes with this property. But and also, we clearly have a land use conflict currently with this proposal, which is also a challenge. I mean, it's been evident in our discussion. So, any other thoughts? I would really like to see the survey side of it, because that weighs heavily on any kind of decision.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. We need to see the survey in this document that's being proposed, and a very accurate survey with location of a retaining wall, if it can be built in the right of way, and if there's going to be a 12 by 12 patio pad, that needs to be measured out and laid out and by the surveyor, so we have clear information in regards to what's being proposed for this particular piece of property.
I'd like to second that and just say, can it be a licensed surveyor that submits that?
Yeah.
And not the township?
Yeah.
And then I had another question on the shoreland, or on the floodplain. I did have that as a question in my initial review of this. Can staff provide the committee with a, I don't know how you do this in the past, obviously my first meeting, but can you provide kind of a synopsis of whether or not this is consistent with the use of the floodplain ordinance? I've read through the different overlay district uses and prohibitions on there, and I'm not completely clear on whether or not they can just, if the township can go in there and ask for a structure to be placed within the floodplain.
Sure. Yes. So in this, there are a couple different classifications of floodplain. So we have a regular 100-year floodplain area, which is usually shown in yellow on our land use map. That is the area that's prone to a 1% chance of flood per year. Then we have the blue area that's indicated, and that's floodway. That is more prone essentially to flooding as in the FEMA modeling. In the floodplain section of the ordinance, it specifies all of the permitted uses within those areas and what permit would be required, if any. because this is mapped floodway, any retaining walls or fill areas like that would be subject to, number one, a conditional use permit, but then it would also have those other requirements as listed in the ordinance, and one of those being engineering, but then also certifying that it's not going to increase the flood stage. So in this case, the reason why it's before you tonight is it requires a conditional use permit for this activity, but it can be permitted as a conditional use permit.
So if I can just clarify, so it really only needs to be an engineered design, and it has to, what was the second condition?
Not increase the flood stage
So
of the water during a flood.
within the ordinance, it's not going to increase the flood stage, obviously. And
Correct. So that's what the statement from the engineer had stated.
so it's met those two conditions.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then there's a degree, anytime anything's in a floodway, then you have to try to use your good sense or common sense, however you want to refer to it, meter, is that if this was to flood, what's the impact of this being there, which is beyond it. That's where the engineering helps too. Is this something that's going to get washed away and end up into trash somewhere else, or can it withstand it? And depends on the use.
Mr. Chair, just a question maybe for Nick or maybe for Angie. On page 2 of our packet under the property line, we have Brockway Township states that all work will be conducted within their property boundaries. And a survey has not been completed or provided with this application. We have the 120-day window we're pushing up against. So tabling this is not realistic right now. Could we include the requirement for a survey to be done to confirm the property boundaries prior to installation?
Mr. Chairman, Member Wienerman, that could potentially be the case. You could potentially proceed that way. However, there are, I think, 2 other avenues for sure that could be pursued. So the decision deadline for this is March 23rd. That we've administratively extended it to that deadline, which is the maximum that we can do administratively. One option would be if the township is willing, they can sign off to an indefinite deadline. So then that way we can extend past that, which would give them time to complete a survey and a staking survey of where exactly the wall's proposed and the patio's proposed. So that would give more time to make a decision, and we could revisit that later than March 23rd. That is an option. Otherwise, we could make, the Planning Commission could make the decision to approve or deny before that date, which we would still have another meeting before that date.
Good question. So I'll open to comment from members how you'd like to approach, push it back
Mr.
potentially,
Chair.
or vote now.
Mr. Chair, didn't Mr. Fiedler say that they had done a stake survey only a year and a half ago or something? Wasn't that?
Yep, that was stated. So if that is a certified survey and it's all agreed upon, I mean, if it's done by a licensed surveyor,
That's a question for him then.
that would be the question, and then whether or not that would suffice for us.
And why are we contesting that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Mr. Chair,
so
point
go
of
ahead.
information, Mr. Chair. We would still need to see the staking of the proposed wall and the patio in relation to that survey.
Into the relation to the survey, okay, for the drawing.
So
George.
Brockway Township, we're not opposed to pushing this out indefinite or whatever the terminology will be. We'll get the survey, we'll get the surveyor to do a survey based on the one that they did before, Delano did it, and show on the survey where the wall would be. And then we'll bring that back.
Okay.
We can't do anything down there anyway.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Mr. Fiedler. Also, there's been questions about activity down there and maintenance and the garbage and all that. You'll have a township meeting between now and the time you're coming back, I'm sure.
Correct.
Could we get some type of a commitment about that maintenance so that there's buy-in, so there is a fund there and make sure that those things could be taken care of?
Absolutely, we'll get that.
And
I just want to comment, I was at a number of those meetings, and I know this is a tremendous asset for the community, but I don't think any of these things are issues that can't be worked through.
Well, that's a good point, Joe, and I was just going to mention to George too, there's also clearly a land use conflict right now, and one of the things that we always have to keep in mind is that, and I totally get the reason for doing this, and the township residents have asked for it. However, just because a lot of people want it doesn't necessarily override someone else's rights either. And so we have to weigh that too. The more that you can work with the landowners in that area to resolve some of the land use conflicts, which we clearly heard tonight, the better it would be for the next meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so
Mr.
then we would
Chair,
need a motion to continue this,
Yeah,
right?
just in summary, making sure that all that you want to see back is a certificate of survey, correct? And then some input, hopefully from the
Yeah.
township board on minimizing those conflicts?
Yep.
Well,
And
do we also want to see the location where the wall's going to be? That was
yeah. We would want to see the survey. We'd want to see where this is going obviously relation to property and the easement, and just real quick clarification too. It'd be ease of mind for me is what that language looks like as it relates to the right of way. I haven't encountered that in the past, so I don't know what the legal ramifications are right of way versus outright owned property. So clarification, that would be good. Other than that, is there anything else that anyone else wanted to see? All right, then we would technically need a motion to continue this.
I'll make that motion.
I will
Motion by
second
Sean,
that.
second by Rich. Okay, all those in favor of continuing to a later meeting? We don't have a date yet. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.
And Mr. Chair, I echo your comments about working cooperatively. And this is something we should all be in favor of instead of having conflict.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, real quick, we do need to get those photos from Mr. Allen for public record.
That would be great. Do you have those yet? They're over here. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 2, and that's to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Mike and Eileen Stang of Richmond, Minnesota, according to section 4.8, 4.14, 6.9 to 9.2 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request is to construct an open lot at a facility greater than 700 animal units or more in an A80 zoning district. Feedlot facility is proposed to increase from 638.7 animal units to 870 animal units. The property under consideration is 135 acres located in the northwest quarter of Section 4 in Luxembourg Township, located at 19501 Shackman Lake Road in Richmond. All right, so real quick, roll call of members who visited this site. We'll start with you, Jason.
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
I also did. Dave?
Yes.
Tara?
No.
And Rich?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. And with that, we have our applicants up here. Perfect, we'll come back to you to state your name and address for the record, but we'll have Beth Jill run through the staff report first, if you're cool with that.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is a request to construct a 884 square foot open lot, which is number 6 on the map, an increase from 638.7 animal units to 870. The location and address, as you stated, is a parcel size of 135 acres, which is zoned A80 in Luxembourg Township. The goals are present in your packet, but some of the other additional relevant information for this site is that this site has remained registered with the county and state since July 26 of 2000 and meets all those county and state registration requirements. The original registration was for 406.3 animal units. And the permitted animal units currently and the requested increase to the 870 are outlined in your packet in that chart. The facility was inspected on June 1st of 2022 and determined by staff to be compliant with Stearns County Ordinance 439 and Minnesota Rule Chapter 7020 for water quality discharge standards. At the time of the inspection, the last cropping year's manure application records were unavailable for review, so the facility was deemed non-compliant for the record keeping and manure sampling at that time. But I'd like to note that on December 13th of 2022, copies of the manure samples were submitted, returning the site back to compliance for manure sampling requirements and the actual record keeping after final review on December 19th, 2022. We received their application in July, and that application was complete on December 13th of 2022. The current facility has permitted total and partial confinement barns, open lots, and concrete manure stockpile pad and a liquid manure storage area, which are all represented on the map there on the screen. The proposed open lot on the site is an existing walkway to transfer cattle from one facility to another on the site. We currently have no complaints on file, but we did receive an NOV notice of violation for animal unit expansion without a permit on April 25th of 2016. The applicant applied for a feedlot permit on November 20th of 2016, and the feedlot permit was issued for that on January 17th of 2017, resolving that violation. The surrounding adjoining properties in Stearns County are all zoned A80 and A40. There are 29 residences and 13 existing registered feedlots located within 1 mile of this feedlot, which are represented on the additional maps within your packet. And the nearest residence is 1,244 feet to the northwest of the existing property. At this time, an environmental assessment worksheet, which is the EAW, Environmental Impact Statement, EIS, and State Disposal System, which is SDS, or National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, feedlot permits are not required for this facility. The draft feedlot review committee minutes are in your packet, along with the recommended staff recommendations. And then I would just like to ask the board members who was able to visit the site.
Yep. Yeah, we did that right away in the roll calls. So,
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Double check that.
And then that's all I have at this time.
All right, very good. With that, if applicants wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and with your address as well.
Okay, it's Mike and Eileen Stang. We're 19501 Shackman Lake Road, Richmond, Minnesota.
All right. Anything you want to add to Bethy Jo's report?
No, she covered it pretty good.
All right, very good. And so, question sounds like just expanding, more animals on the property.
So, yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any questions by members for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, just one question for Bethy. On the third bullet point on page 3 of 5, it says the proposed open lot is existing. Is it an open lot that's existing, or is it currently a walkway? Is that, are we doing a retroactive approval here?
Member Wienerman and other members of the board, so it is an existing walkway, and under definition of feedlot 7020 rules, it is considered an open lot.
Okay.
We do not charge any after-the-fact fees for pre-existing open lots, so that's why you're not seeing items in here as after-the-fact.
Okay, thanks.
So that's why it's part of the reference.
Thank
yep.
you.
All right, very good. Any others? Good question, by the way, Jason. 2 points for it. All right. If there's nothing else, we will move on to the public hearing. And do we have any letters or testimony that you received, Bethy Jo?
I have not received any public comment
okay.
or questions or calls regarding this request.
All right. So not seeing a rush to the microphone, a motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
I'll move we close the public hearing.
Thanks, Sean. Second by Rich. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? Public hearing closed. Any further discussion or questions for applicants or staff before we move to the findings of fact? All right, we'll get rolling then. So number one, is the proposal consistent with the zoning ordinance? Why or why not?
Mr. Chair, it is consistent with the zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.8, 4.14, 6.9, and 9.2.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Number two, does the proposal conform to the comprehensive plan of the county? List the applicable sections.
None is required.
What was that?
None are required.
This would be the comprehensive plan.
You jumped ahead.
You skipped number 2.
Am I reading wrong?
Sorry, I was going off this number 2 sheet. I'm going to go to the staff analysis one. My finding of facts doesn't have that question, so I think this is the official record, right? To Rich's point, if we need to go number 2, it doesn't apply. He's correct.
Mr. Chair, this is Becky Schlorf, Environmental Services Supervisor. Go off of the staff report, please.
Okay, we'll go off the staff report. Okay, so then number 3, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county's comprehensive plan?
Mr. Chair, Jason Wienerman here. I believe it does under agricultural goal number 1. Ag use policies, which number 2 emphasize the importance of animal agriculture to the county economy. And then animal agriculture policies. 1, allow animal feedlots in agricultural areas by protecting them from non-housing farming, so just restoring that. And 2 would be following pollution controls, because they're not really changing anything, so it's all up to snuff.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. All right, so number 4 then, will the site configuration, number, and type of animals at this site and prevailing wind conditions impact any of the following areas? Things like traffic, public safety, schools, any other impacts?
Mr. Chair, minimal impact.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. Agree there. Number 5, has the information been provided regarding the impact of property values as a result of the proposal? And there's none provided, so not applicable. And then number 6, have all recommendations from the Feedlot Review Committee and Feedlot staff been reviewed? And we did have their comments and notes, so there's feel differently, that's covered. Any other issues pertinent to this matter? It's an expansion of an existing feedlot, and there's been, other than the initial violation, really nothing else. All has been in good standing, so I think that's pertinent as well.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to recommend approval of this application.
I'll second it.
All right, very good. So motion made by Sean, second by Mike to recommend approval. All those in favor say aye.
Question?
Oh,
question.
Rich, go ahead.
Is that motion, does that include the staff recommendation?
For the conditions?
The one and
I'm
only?
sorry, yes, there is one condition.
Okay, and that is, thank you, Rich, for catching that.
It's in the record.
So that is with the proposed condition. We'll go back to the roll call then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Rich, for cleaning that up for us. Motion recommend approval will go to the county board for their next meeting, and that is?
February 7th.
Thank you, Becky. All right, so February 7th, so thank you. Yep.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for you. I see you using a lot of that egg plastic. Has that recycling program been working for you at all?
They do come and pick it up, but you don't know when they're coming.
Yeah, because, we'd like to keep that going.
You're right.
Yeah, it's a shame that it would, have to be burned or buried or
Right.
something else. We'd like to keep that recycling going, but yeah. So, how often have you been picking it up?
I don't even know. My son mixes feed, and it's not very often though. I think they came once this winter so far. Okay, well, thanks.
Thank you. All right. That takes us to agenda item number 3. I have a note that the applicants, thank you, Deb. I have a note that the applicants would be attending, or do you know, are they here, Becky?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yes, we did have a situation occur. So we do have a representative for the feedlot that will be participating tonight. I will be calling him via cell phone and putting him on speakerphone so you can
Okay.
direct any questions that the board may have so we can continue with that
No
item.
problem.
So.
Okay, sounds very good. So agenda item number 3 is to consider a conditional use permit request submitted by Evergreen Estates, doing business as Silver's Dairy, Keith Schaefer of Paynesville, Minnesota, according to sections 4.8, 4.14, 6.9, and 9.3 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439. The request is to construct a new earthen liquid manure storage area, construct a permanent stockpile pad, and scrape lane at a facility greater than 700 animal units or more in an A40 zoning district. The feedlot facility is proposed to increase from 757 animal units to 997.8 animal units. The property under consideration is 25.85 acres located in the northwest quarter of Section 20 in Farming Township, located at 24168 County Road 117, Albany, Minnesota. Real quick roll call of members that visited the site. Jason?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
I also did. Dave?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
And Rich?
Yes.
Very good. And then Bethy Jo, it's up to you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so this is a request to eliminate the existing 150 by 170 by 12-foot earthen LMSA on site and proposing to construct a 230-foot by 550-foot by an 18-foot deep earthen LMSA and to construct a concrete permanent stockpile pad 60 feet by 100 foot and 8 inches, and then a scrape lane alongside of that to the south, which is 70 feet 6 inches by 150 feet long, and then they're looking to increase from 757 animal units to 997.8. The location, as you had listed, is a parcel that is the size of 25.85 acres, and it's zoned A40 in Farming Township. The comprehensive plan, pillar goals are listed in your packet. Some of the additional relevant information for this site is that this site's been registered with the county and state since September 13th of 2000, meets all the state and county requirements for that. The original reg was for 176 animal units. The 997.8 animal units proposed with the existing permitted animal units are representative in that chart in your packet. The facility was inspected on March 16th of 2022 and was determined by staff to be compliant with Stearns County Ordinance 439 and Minnesota Rule Chapter 7020 for water quality discharge standards. Prior to the site inspection, the manure application records for the last crop year were submitted on March 10th of 2022 for review. Those records were reviewed and met the Minnesota Rule Chapter 7020 requirements. We received their application in March of 2022, and that was deemed complete on December 6th of 2022. This facility has the total and partial confinement barns, open lots, breezeway, bedding storage, earthen and concrete liquid manure storage areas, and a manure pump as shown on that map within your packet. The earthen LMSA proposed will be an increase in liquid manure storage capacity at the feedlot facility. The proposed stockpile pad, which is the manure storage for the pen pack, will have a scrape lane to the earthen LMSA. The proposed earthen LMSA will be 59 feet and 3 inches from the east property line, and the county setback for that is 50 feet. Currently, there are 10 employees for the facility working 24 hours to care for the livestock on site. The feedlot has 2 prior CUPs which were issued in 2017 and 2018 with the following conditions outlined in your packet. So the first one in 2017 had 5 conditions, and then the one in 2018 that was issued contained no conditions. The feedlot is compliant with all those previous CUP conditions as listed in your packet. We have no valid complaints on file for this feedlot. The surrounding properties in Stearns County are zoned A40. There's no wetlands that will be impacted by this proposal. 16 residents and 11 existing registered feedlots are located within 1 mile of this feedlot, which are also shown on those maps in your packet. The nearest residence to the property is 738 feet to the south. and 2,030 feet to the east of the proposed LMSA. The overall proposed construction will disturb approximately 3.3 acres. The applicant is required to complete a stormwater pollution prevention plan known as a SWIP, but that's not required to be submitted to Environmental Services Department. And then at this time, an EAW Environmental Impact Statement, EIS, State Disposal System, SDS, or Feedlot National Pollution Discharge System or Elimination System, NPDS permit are not required for this facility. The feedlot review draft minutes are included in your packet, and then the staff recommendations are also listed in your packet. There's 3 of those, and that's all I have for you at this time, other than just indicating if you attended this site. So,
Very good. And you have that, right, Bethy Jo, that record of who
Yep.
attended or
Yep.
visited site? Good, okay. Quick question for you, Bethy Jo. Letters went out on all this stuff, right? So, I mean, obviously we haven't received any correspondence either.
correct.
Okay.
We haven't received anything, no phone calls or questions.
Okay.
So,
That'd be my biggest concern here. Any need for anyone, and does anyone have questions for the applicants if Bethy Jo needs to get the representative? I don't have any. Oh, you have them on now? Yeah, yeah, and if there's anything he wants to add to your staff report, we could certainly do that.
want to add, Nathan?
Would it be my address or the farm address?
It would be yours, your personal address.
My personal, okay. Nathan Berg, 24434 268th Avenue, Painesville, Minnesota, 56362.
And then if there's anything that you want to add to the staff report for the site, and if there isn't, you can just say that there isn't anything at this time.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Well, Nathan, since you're on, real quick question. This is Jason. Just an expansion to the farm, basically, is what I'm seeing here. Is there anything else that we need to know on this one?
No, it's just get a little more manure storage for, for our application, and just to give, more storage is the goal.
Okay.
Just to contain everything.
All right. Very good. Go ahead, Jason.
So, Mr. Chair, just a question for the applicant. Well, 2 questions. So the pit you're going to install is going to be substantially larger. So does that mean you're going to be doing less applications during the year? Is that kind of what you envision?
That is our goal. As of right now, we do a lot of hauling more often. We'd like to get to that once a year hauling. All application in the fall is our goal with this.
And then just a quick follow-up on that. You said you're doing hauling applications, so are you trucking the manure liquid storage from one site to another? Are you pumping it through pipes to different fields?
Right now, if we can, spring and fall application, hose drag to the neighbors, or we truck it out to all their sites. We have taken it to different sites, other people's pits, other people's fields throughout the year.
Okay.
But we're just trying to eliminate that so we could do like all fall application manure hose drag injected.
And then a final question. The application says you're going to vacate the existing pit. Are you going to abandon and seal that pit? Or is it just going to be emptied and...
It'll be emptied, and then the new pit would take over the existing pit and be redone, relined, completely redone.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Thanks.
And Mr. Chair and members of the board, just to piggyback on that as well. So when a site is closing a manure pit, such as the one that's outlined in red, there is this kind of a standard process that we would have to go out and verify soil. So they will clean the pit out and then scrape any contaminated soil down to good soil before they can backfill that. So there is paperwork in process with that as well. So I just wanted to kind of elaborate on that for the board. So.
Very good. Thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Mr. Chair, forgive me for my inexperience here, but the existing liquid manure pit is quite small, as was pointed out, compared to what's proposed in, so does. Sorry. I'm still learning. Does area, that 12 that's on the plat, does that whole area become liquid manure open, or, and that struck me as significant increase compared to what they've had, and I just wasn't sure about, you know, the impact on the neighbors when it came to, you know, fumes, odor. Is that an issue or a concern?
So Dave, I'll give you a little context. It's a legitimate question, and it can be a concern depending on where you are and the sensitivities to the neighbors. So with the different feedlot setbacks and things that have been put in place in ordinances over the years, it's trying to eliminate some of those concerns. So that observation is a good one. I asked the question if the letters had gone out, because that's initially my biggest concern, is that would there be concerns from smells or things like that. Now, in this location, when you look at the surrounding area, everyone's kind of accustomed to the sights and smells of agriculture in those areas, so usually you're like, okay, things are going to go well, but you put something like this closer to Sartell or, you know, a different town, and all of a sudden it can be an issue.
Yeah, I recognize that the neighbors weren't extremely close. I get that, but I just was
I guess
amazed at the size increase and how they've been able to operate such a small one for so long.
Well, Jason asked a good question earlier, and the nice trade-off here. So you have a larger pit, potentially more odor, potentially. The positive of that is you have a lot less hauling, and as you know, the more applications you make, you actually are usually creating a lot more smell and dispersing it a lot further than keeping it contained. And that's my perspective. Bethy, Joe, any others can provide feedback on that.
Yeah, I can add some information to that. So as stated in the staff report, we currently have a 50-foot property line setback. They're proposing, you know, to be greater than that. So one of the conditions is to make sure that survey-wise they are meeting at minimum that 50. The closest residents were listed in the packet, including the direction to where it was. So sometimes, you know, you're looking at prevailing winds, but as Mr. Wienerman had asked and as Mr. Crone had stated, that as the representative for the facility, as Nathan had mentioned, like right now they're doing multiple applications, which means multiple agitations of that pit. There's a lot of hauling going on. This proposal is going to limit it to hopefully for them to be able to do a one-time application per year with less, that's one-time agitating, less, just more overall, more efficiency for the farm itself is really why I think they're focused on this with the cattle expansion as well that they're proposing. So hopefully, and the timing of the application of the manure, when you can do it seasonally, there is a difference when we're talking about cropping and having nitrogen in the ground for crops and runoff concerns and things like that. So having those precise timing ability to make those applications versus throughout the year is environmentally more sound too as well. So
thank you for clarifying.
And then Bethy, Joe, I'm probably wandering off on a very dangerous limb here. Going to show my ignorance. It's a liquid manure site, but the sites form a crust on top of the liquid, right? And that crust tends to minimize smell, and less frequent agitations break up that crust less. And
Mr. Wienerman, yeah, and members of the board, that is true. There is a crust that is created, so the less agitation that you're doing throughout the year, the less that you're breaking up that crust for it to build a new one on there. So that is a good question and a good point in itself too. So, yep.
And Mr. Chair, just to clarify, that tends to be the case with dairy and related to bedding. And in this case, I believe that is accurate here.
Yeah. Good question, new member.
Very good question.
Very good. Awesome.
Mr. Chair?
Joe.
And I agree, Jason had a question, Dave's question, because that's where my question was going to be all very similar to that. Nathan, I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, with that liquid manure, have you had any complaints with the neighbors as far as storage or application, or also to staff if there's been anything submitted as far as problems with application or just location of its storage?
No, we haven't had nothing that way. Actually, most of the neighbors that are surrounding us do take the manure. That is one, we don't really crop any of the ground around the area. So we have, most of the neighbors are the ones that are taking the manure from us as well.
Okay, and then are you applying that and tilling it right away?
As much as we can. Some of the stuff, if it doesn't work out, we can't, but that is our goal. And, with doing this is to get, 100% we can do it in the fall.
Oh, okay, good.
That's one of our main objectives is to get, it's the quality, the dollar, it's worth a lot more to everybody if we can do it in fall application or spring or fall. If somebody wanted some in the spring, that's fine,
Yeah.
But, just to get it, the biggest one is to get it in the ground and get the most value out of it for everybody.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask staff this question. Again, this is a huge increase in size. Also, there's a considerable slope going to the north. I'm just concerned about runoff. These are the pit's completely lined, and there'll be no leakage or seepage or any debris coming off it. So, all that stuff will be contained then, correct?
Correct. All the runoff from the stacking slab will be contained. And of course, as far as that slope is right now, with cleaning out the existing pit and digging out any contaminated soil, the new pit will be lowered. I believe it's like 5 feet lower than what the existing one is now, just to get it in the ground, put the whole, everything, so your sidewalls aren't as steep as what you're seeing.
Okay, good. And then, Mr. Chair, if I may, I got to ask you this question too. I look at all that white ag plastic you have there. That is a concern for the county. Have you been able to recycle that?
All of the what? I'm sorry.
The plastic, the white plastic that you're using for feed.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Persky, it's actually, I think you're looking in the blue area.
Yeah.
It's calf huts.
Oh, those are calf huts. Sorry about that. Well, but the area then to the north, I think, or to the south of that is ag plastic. No?
Yep, that's all calf huts on this facility.
Yep.
Okay.
So I guess I'd just like to add to that too. So like you can see the blue outline containing a bunch of the calf huts. That was an area that was indicated on previous permits and applications. Within the ordinance, if there is a 433 square foot or less portable structure, a permit isn't necessarily required for that, but they are required to meet the setbacks. So that includes property lines, residential, well setbacks. So that's why you'll see to the south of that blue line, those other rows of those white rectangle features, those are also calf huts. Those do meet the setbacks. They're just not part of the footprint because a permit isn't technically required for the calf huts if they're 433 square feet or less portable. So, okay. And then also too about the LMSA, there are engineered plans that are submitted for that structure. So those do have to meet the requirements for the state, and an engineer observes the construction and checks on that and does a final as-built report on that as well. So it is an engineered design structure. So
the manure is too valuable to let seep away.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. Anything else before we move on to our public hearing? All right, so with that, Bethy Jo, did we receive any correspondence?
Chairman Crone and members of the board, I received no public correspondence, phone calls, or inquiries about this request.
So once again, seeing an empty room, a motion would be in order.
I'll move we close.
Okay, Rich motioned, second by Sean. Thank you, to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Any further discussion before we go to finding of fact?
Well, the only comment I had, just seems like there's going to be a lot of pen pack. I don't think that's going to go into LMSA, is it? That's just a runoff from that?
Members of the board, the stacking slab, which is the structure just to the west of the LMSA, so that number 10, that will be a concrete pad that will contain all the pen pack from the calf huts, and then any runoff that may be generated from that. They do have the scrape lane to the south of that, so that will run into the LMSA if needed, or they'll push it in with the skid steer, so.
Good question. Thanks. All right, anything else? All right, we'll go to finding of facts. So number 1, is the proposal consistent with the Stearns County zoning ordinance number 439? Please specify all performance standards that apply.
Mr. Chair, Sean Blackburn, it does specify, I'm sorry, it is consistent with the county zoning ordinance 439, sections 4.8, 4.14, 6.9, and 9.3.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Number 2, is there an environmental assessment worksheet, environmental impact statement, national pollution discharge elimination system, state disposal system, or other permit required for this facility?
Mr. Chair, not at this time.
Except for the MPD.
Except for the MPDES, I believe. Okay. Yep, right on. Good. Thank you, Jason and Mike.
It would be the SWIP. They don't need an MPDS permit. It would be that stormwater pollution prevention plan. Yeah, so. Yep.
Okay. Okay, the SWIP is what's actually needed that falls. Can you just
Yeah, I
explain
can
that
clarify,
quick?
Mr. Chair.
Thank
Becky Schlorf. So with the landowner completing a SWIP, they meet the conditions for the NPDS general
Oh.
permit for the stormwater,
Okay.
stormwater NPDS.
Okay,
And that's because it's more than 1 acre.
Correct.
good. All right, thank you for clarifying. Number 3, does the proposal conform to the goals and objectives of the county's comprehensive land use plan? Please specify the appropriate sections. I'll just jump in. There's a variety of them. Support agriculture, desirable land use under the ag goals. There's 5 or 6 ag goals, ag use policies that apply. I'll just stick with the one and realize that there's about 7 or 8 that apply. Anyone see it differently? All right, moving on to number 4. Will the site configuration, number and type of animals at this site and prevailing wind conditions impact any of the following areas? Traffic, public safety, schools, other impacts.
I think it'll improve safety with more timely delivering of the material.
I would concur there would be less traffic
Yeah.
from the less frequent applications.
Yeah. And as commented on, even less agitation should hopefully help reduce the smells as well. So very good. Thanks, gentlemen. Number 5, has the information been provided regarding the impact of property values in the area as a result of the proposal? And there's not been.
Hasn't been provided, but an interesting comment was there is no lack of people interested in manure.
Yeah.
So.
It's a valuable
We've seen the price
commodity.
of fertilizer.
I know, yep.
It's extremely valuable. Which could also fall in the number 7, other issues pertinent to this matter. But anyway, number 6, have all recommendations from the Feedlot Review Committee and feedlot staff been reviewed? And
Yeah.
Yes, they have been as part of the process here. And then number 7, other issues pertinent to this matter. And it's valuable stuff, so you want to be careful if you're dealing with it.
Mr. Chair, I
properly.
recommend, I forward a recommendation of approval of this conditional use permit with the 3
conditions.
conditions for
Thank you,
approval
Jason.
by the board.
Very good. Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Mike. So motion made by Jason, second by Mike to recommend approval. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So motion to recommend approval will go on to the county board in their February 7th meeting, if memory serves me correctly. All right. Very good. Thank you, Nathan, for joining us. Yeah. So that takes us to agenda item number 4, and that is to approve the minutes from the December meeting. And I'm going to abstain since I was not there.
As will I.
Well, we had slim pickings, and we had
As
2.
will I.
Boy, a lot of
As will I.
pressure, Sean and Rich and Mike.
I move we approve.
Thank you, Rich.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Sean. All those in favor, between you 3, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Yeah.
Abstain or-
Yeah, you can, we all The rest of us abstained, so very good. Anything else for agenda item number 5? Any other issues?
I have one item.
Rich?
I'm going on record, this is my 3rd or 4th time. I'm making a request to the county, Mr. Persky, you're here representing the board, that the county purchase magnetic signs, and all it has to do is show the perimeter of Stearns County with the word Stearns County on it, that we can put on the sides of our vehicle. The laminated paper signs that we were given about 1.5 years ago don't work because they're intended to be laid on our dashboards. That doesn't do us any good. When a person walks up on the driver's side and they look at you, which happened this last time for me, it's like if he was packing heat, I think I would have been a dead man. No, seriously. And I brought this up 3 or 4 times, and I'd like Mr. Persky to take this to the board at the next meeting. I don't know what they cost, but it alleviates that question for the landowner, who's coming into my property or on my property? Who's getting out of that vehicle and walking up to my buildings? I think that's a great concern. In this day and age, when you hear about the shootings that take place, I think the cost of magnetic signs is a good investment for us.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'll respond to that. And then I got a couple items here too for tonight. I agree with Mr. Blankish. I don't know, over the years, 5 years, I've been doing site visits. There always have been issues, and you've got people perhaps also that are a bit concerned when somebody drives up into their yard in a rural area, and I think that would help identify us. You don't know what you're walking into, because they may have had some vandalism or some theft on the property, and you're there, and all of a sudden they're coming from another location, and there's a strange vehicle there. So I would echo Mr. Blankish's concerns, and I will bring that up to the board. First of all, again, it's nice to have Tara and Dave on the board. Welcome. I just want to explain to you a couple of things about this. I appreciate you serving. We take this job very, very serious, because you are the eyes and ears for the board when it goes out. The decisions that you make, the packet information comes to the commissioners, and your recommendation comes to the commissioners. Oftentimes it comes only on the consent agenda. So what you will hear oftentimes is you'll hear Persky asking a lot of questions. And the reason I ask those questions is we ferret out as many items as we can, because the board is just going to vote a yes and no on just on a blanket recommendation from you folks. And so if you've got any concerns about the property, by all means ask that. Also, it's not a good old boys and girls club. We don't always have a unanimous vote. If you want to vote no, that's fine. If you do that, I may ask you the why, because I want to know what the issue was that you saw, because sometimes it's very strong, pertinent question that we didn't see. And that can change the decision of the board here or of the board. So again, I appreciate you taking your positions seriously, and also the time commitment that you have. So yeah.
Good.
One other thing I was looking at is we just moved our meetings to 6 o'clock, and I've always been in the mindset that we're here to represent the public. If I go to a Rice Sportsman's meeting, that meeting is at 8 o'clock. It used to be 8:30, but it was a little contentious even to move it to 8 o'clock. Why? Because a lot of the people are involved in agriculture, and having it later in the evening allows them to get here. If we have a public hearing, okay, there might be people out by Sauk Center, Bruton, Belgrade, Melrose. They have to be here at 6 o'clock. Is that in their best interest? You know, we want to get home. You know, there might be something that we want to see on TV. We might even want to see our spouse, but you know, there might be a reason, you know, for us to try to get home early. But is that necessarily in the best interest of the public? And so I just would like to see if anybody wants to weigh in on that, because I really think maybe we could do better by starting at 7. That's my opinion.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
Beth Jo, is it common for you to have the applicant call in and be able to do what they did tonight?
So we give options for them. Our first preference is if they can be here in person, of course. And then COVID allowed a lot of the online participation, and depending on some people, if they're traveling or whatever, that is an option. We set them up ahead of time. And then the last and final resort is usually by telephone. It just happened to be tonight that there was a situation that occurred. So the main representative was unable to be here. So that's why Nathan participated on the phone. But we have done it in the past a handful of times. But like I said, it usually goes in the order that if they can be here in person, we push for that. And then virtually, so you can see them on the screen, and then via phone is an option. So.
Yeah. Joe, I was just going to build off something you stated initially, and that was about just sharing your opinions. That's the nice thing about our group. We never all agree. I shouldn't say that. Quite often, we do not all agree on certain topics and issues, and it's important to state your opinion and why. And the why is as important as what the opinion is, because it does help provide guidance, particularly on those split votes. And everybody's opinion is important. So if you see something different than what you might even see the majority, just encourage you. Maintain your position and justify why, because that's an important part of the process.
Sure. My only question for that is the question of equity, because if you are a representative who has small children, or you have a job, or you're trying to take care of the household, being able to come later might be good, but being able to maintain those options to attend via Zoom or the way that the applicant did today is still very valuable for anybody else that's not in the farming community too. And so I don't necessarily see a reason to move it up to 7 o'clock or move it back to 7 o'clock, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Good question, Joe. My opinion too, I like the 6 o'clock, even though like a lot of times it's a rush. 'Cause it's always going to be a rush straight from the office to here. But I think it's important if it's a problem for an applicant, if they state that they're working with staff, we can be flexible. We adjust those times, I know, in the past. So if we make it standard 6, but we need to move it to 7 for whatever reason, I'm good with that.
And I know on our end, for us, a lot of times we do, like as staff working with them, you kind of know, like if they're working on the farm full-time, or if they have a full-time job and then farming after their, full-time job in town or whatever. And if someone is the only representative but also needs to be milking cows and can't do both, we do, depending on agenda, we try to push them somewhere in the agenda where it is enough time for them to be able to either be first, so they can come here and maybe start chores maybe 20 minutes or half an hour later, or push them to the end so that chores are done, they can shower and still get here on time and participate. But again, since COVID, there's been the ability to do it via the computer or over the phone, so a little bit more flexible that way, as you mentioned. So
good, awesome,
Mr. Chair. And then I'm concerned not only about the applicant, but also when we have contentious issues, where you make sure that the public's able to get here.
I think the same thing applies. The tricky part with that is sometimes when we start late, it's not conducive to the public to be here till 9:30 or 10:30 at night either. So it's a balancing act.
We were here past midnight on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, and we want to avoid those. So that's what 6 o'clock does help. But to your point, I think we all just want to be flexible. And does everyone agree, from a guidance standpoint? I mean, 6 o'clock is great. If we see something that needs to change for whatever reason to make it better for the applicant or public, I think we're all flexible on that.
Yeah, 6 is good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then we'll stay with 6. And I will say too, then with the recommendation, if it's going to be a contentious, to put it towards the end, at least allow those people to get here for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Because it's their opportunity to speak about it.
Good.
Okay.
Cool.
I think the environmental controls turn off at 10, just as a note to self. When we've been here after 10.
Really?
It gets very warm in here.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. I figured it's usually warm. Figured it's usually warm before it, but anyway, on those nights. All right, anything else anyone has? Otherwise, we can make a
Well,
motion.
Dave or Terry, you want to say anything about, just introduce yourselves to us?
Sure. Yeah. Tara Ossendorf. I live on well, it's becoming more than a hobby farm, north of Albany, actually. My husband grew up in Albany. I grew up in Sauk Center, so spent my whole life, I guess, in Stearns County. Didn't get very far. I spent most of my career working in local government, and then went to the state for a few years. Worked with Jason, actually. And then right now I'm in the private sector for a civil engineering firm. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
And I have been in law enforcement in between St. Cloud and Waite Park now for 32 years. I'm currently police chief in Waite Park. I am retiring in May, so I figured I needed to find something to do in my free time, and so Planning Commission's it. So I appreciate Joe nominating me for the spot. It's something I've always been interested in. Actually, when I ran for sheriff, I had a chance to visit, I think, just about every township board. And ironically, I found myself kind of lingering after the meetings, just kind of listening to some of the planning stuff. I thought it was kind of interesting. So when Joe told me about the Planning Commission, and I know Jeff Bertram pretty well, and they said he encouraged me as well. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So here we are. Thanks.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome to both of you. Thank you. It's a journey. All right, cool. With that, motion would be in order to
Motion to
close.
adjourn.
All right, motion by Rich, second by Dave. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed,